Hey up and welcome to this video. Now I try and plan ahead with my photography, so one of my sort of planned projects this year was to go into the Peak District late evening, maybe after work, finish work, come home, have a bite to eat and have a drive into the Peak District. I'm just about an hour away from most decent locations. And the plan was to go and get sunset or various sunsets in this time of the year. So summertime, the sun obviously sets later, so you've got plenty of time to play with and get to your location. Then we had the situation where petrol went boom, the price shot up. So I kind of looked at this because I was going to do a number of trips into the Peak District. And I kind of thought, okay, it's still doable. I'll just have to scale back the number of journeys and visits I make. Then on top of this, we had the energy prices that went boom, boom. And then food was also going boom. So it was a load of booms. And I kind of ended up knocking it on the head. The cost of travelling to the Peak District on a number of nights started to get a little bit scary on top of everything else. So when I looked at sunsets and kind of broke them down, you've got three elements for me. You've got some foreground, you've got the sun itself, and then you've got a half decent sky. So I thought, okay, let's look local. Can I find something local that I can keep visiting to get some decent sunsets? So I had a look on good old Google Earth and found a location, and I went into the recce. Hey up and welcome to a sunset, and I've come local tonight. About 10 minutes from home, and I'd originally planned to be in the next field because there was a nice footpath which would have acted as a leading line into where the sun's going to set. However, I think I've found a better composition, and I'll just talk you through this. We've got the two leading lines of where the tractor has gone through the field. And at the moment, those leading lines are bending round to the left, and it probably means the sun, according to my phone, is going to set on the right hand side of those leading lines. So we'll have the leading lines going left of the image, and then we'll have the sun setting on the right hand side. Okay, so I'd found a workable composition. We've got the tractor lines going nicely into the crop of wheat, leading us up towards the sun. And the great thing about these lines in the crop were that you'd got the option to keep the camera down low and feature the foreground, or you'd got the option to raise the camera up if there was a lot more interest and detail in the sky itself. So this worked quite well. So having found that, I was quite happy with that. But I came back to see if there was another potential composition in the same area or similar area, and see if I could find something better or an alternative. did find this particular composition about 15 minutes before the sun went down, so I didn't have long to get set up. And this one had a nice leading line of the wooden fence in the bottom. It's got the wild grasses as well that were catch lighting the sun as it went down. We've got a tree in the right hand side there, and on this particular night we'd got some nice clouds, so we'd got all three elements in this shot. The only problem was it was very fixed. I couldn't move left or right. I couldn't move the tripod, reposition left or right. I could turn the camera around, but in the previous composition I'd got scope to move the tripod left or right across this edge of the field. I could really reposition those leading lines where I wanted them to be to get the best of what was happening in the sky. So this, whilst this second composition was really nice, nicely balanced, it was very, very restricted. So I kind of bookmarked it, and but I wasn't going to focus on this one. I was going to go back to the original composition. So I went back again, and what I was really hoping for was obviously the crop, which was a nice deep green, to turn that golden brown, and that would obviously take some time. So I went back on another visit to find that it was still pretty much green, and just took a shot, one shot, and called it a night. So one of the positives of this location was that I could look out my front window, and the sky I would look at would be the sky that was going to be appearing on the landscape in the composition. So night after night I would look out the window, assessing the sky, and 9 times out of 10 the sky was just wall-to-wall blue, which meant we wouldn't get any interest in the sky. So I left it for quite a period of time, and then one night we had total cloud cover, completely the opposite direction, and it was kind of, do I go now, because there's that much cloud, it's unlikely we're going to see any sun. Anyway, Helen said, oh, stop whinging and get off. So I did. And as I got there and pulled up where I parked, I turned around and the sky had started to open up, and there was beams of sunlight coming down onto the landscape. Got my gear, I ran across the road, and I'm sure anybody watching me would have thought I'd just stolen all this photographic gear, the speed I was going. But I knew that this might not last very long. Got there, got set up, camera on the tripod, and I didn't know it at the time, but I literally had 3 minutes of shooting time before that hole in the cloud closed back up and the sun disappeared. So if you see from these pictures here, this was exactly what I was looking for. This kind of dramatic light coming down on the landscape, lighting up, and as well as that, the field had now turned a beautiful golden colour. It was on top. Underneath you'd still got elements of green, so the crop itself still wasn't ready for harvest, and now it had gone golden. In my mindset, I wanted to capture the field having been harvested and take some shots of the hay bales maybe as they were stacked up. That's what was in my mindset. But these images here was like, it was like 2 minutes gone. The cloud closed up again and that sunlight disappeared. And then as this evening progressed, we got various colours in the sky, the cloud formations kept moving, and the sun never came back. It never came back, but we got some okay sort of shots with colour in the clouds. So what followed was many nights of wall-to-wall blue sky, the height of summer, very little cloud, if any, and we went off to Norfolk for a short holiday. Made a couple of videos there which you may have seen, and came back and went and paid a visit to the location, and disaster. I'd missed the harvest. And I got talking to a couple walking the dog, and they told me that the farmer had done the harvest the previous week whilst we was in Norfolk. He'd stacked the hay bales up for 3 days and then moved them away. So we was now left with this field. It's got textures in it, got some lines, but it wasn't obviously the composition. It didn't obviously have the content of the composition that I wanted. So I carried on. I stayed for the night to see how the sun and the light would pan out, and we did get a bit of a treat. Here's a time lapse of what happened. Okay, let's just go back to the time lapse there, because right at the beginning the cloud and the light just looked like the show was over, and it would have been very easy to walk away, go back to the car and drive away. But the first learning from this kind of project video that I've made is to have patience, because patience can give you a reward. And okay, it wasn't spectacular, this light and colour in the sky, but it was better than nothing. And another learning as well was to stick around even longer. If we see in this part of the time lapse, you can see the sun had gone down and then the upper clouds had illuminated after the sun had gone down behind the horizon. So if you've got high cloud present, there's a good chance that's going to light up 10, 15 or even 20 minutes maybe after the sun's gone down. So there was a learning there to stick around. Okay, another key learning from this was to underexpose for the sky. If you just allow the camera to take control of the exposure, it's going to try and average out the sky and the foreground, and that will overexpose the sky. So most of the shots that I took, I was underexposing by 1 to 2 stops, and then when we come to post-processing, we bring out the foreground and get the light in the image as balanced as we can. Okay, another learning was you don't have to go to a dramatic location to get a half decent sunset or sunrise for that matter. I don't think any of these shots were like amazing. The one with the light through the cloud was the best shot, I think. But the obvious thing, if you do go to a more scenic location, you are going to get a more dramatic foreground. But the main thing about sunset for me is the sky and the sun itself, particularly the sky. The sky can really give you a really nice looking image. Okay, so I have filmed the next video, and we do go into the Peak District, and it's a little bit about food and recipes and content of compositions. Now when you watch the video, all will make sense. Here's a quick preview, and just before that I want to thank you very much for watching the video. If you like this content, consider subscribing to the channel, giving the video a like, sharing the video with people you might know that might like this content, and pop a comment in the bottom. You're very welcome. Okay, here's the preview. I'll see you later. We've got a recipe, actually. Let's think of a composition as a bit of a recipe. So, ingredient, stone wall. Ingredient, down there, Lady Bower Reservoir. Ingredient, landscape and light. And I'm going to have to move because the light is just...